Okay, Mark, you know the drill. Everybody, this is Mark Martin, professional walleye fisherman. We're excited to have him here tonight. He's going to be talking about planer board fishing. Now, on the top or the bottom of your device, you're going to have capability of asking Mark questions. So I very much encourage you guys to absolutely ask as many questions as you would like. This is a great opportunity to ask a professional walleye fisherman anything you want to ask. Oftentimes what happens, many people ask similar questions, so I'll kind of meld them together at the end of the night. We'll get as many questions as we can answered. With that, Mark, you know the drill. I'm going to shut my video and mute my computer, and you are in charge, sir.
All right, Ross. Well, everybody, glad you're able to come join us here tonight. Hopefully, I can give you a few little tips here that'll help you out there when you're using planer boards. I'm sure I can enlighten you a little bit on certain things, but just wanted to start out with a little bit of history of planer boards. This right here is one of my old Rover boards from 30 some years ago, probably closing in on 40 years old. I just changed the little thing to like a downrigger clip that was easier, but this is kind of like the primitive little dinosaur, and then everything kind of came after that. So that I just want to give everybody, this was one of the first, and what they did back in those days, these were muskie fishermen that used these Rover boards, and they pretty much strictly used them for muskie, and then they just kind of phased over into walleye and salmon and everything else. And just want to go through a few different boards. So this is one of the smallest boards right here. This is a TX6 by Church Tackle. They have probably the most planer boards out there in various sizes that fit various needs. This is the smallest one. I really like this one right here when I'm fishing shallow water, because in shallow water, you know, using a size TX22, there's a big difference right here. So in shallow water where the fish can look up, like sometimes I'm using it on the inside of the weed bed where I'm using actually a spinning rod, and I can cast this little bitty one where it'd be real difficult to cast this TX22. But to get back to the TX6 in shallow water, you can see the small profile right here, the little profile compared to the big profile right here. So it's less invasive to the fish. They can't see it as easy as it goes across the surface, and it's smaller in length, and it doesn't like diving ducks and birds that feed on fish. The fish are aware of that kind of thing there, so they get out of the way of, in shallow water, of the bigger board. They'll go around it just like they do boats. So what I had Church come up with was the TX6, where I could actually cast it at times with spinning rods and spinning reels. I pitch my Rattles up there, or my spinners with split shot on, or bullet sinker over the inside of the weeds. I'd be on the outside of the weeds. I'd have my partner hook on one of these real quick, open the bail, throw it out into the shallow water. And so now I'm trolling through the shallow water on the inside of the weeds, and I'm also on the outside of the weeds, fishing the outside of the weeds with planer boards going out and a rod straight behind, or two rods straight behind the boat, fishing the exact weed line. So this right here, in no time, I could catch my fish in shallow water, where the people that were using the bigger boards in shallow water, they caught fish. It just took them a lot longer, where in one pass or two passes, I'd have my limit and I could move on to maybe where there's bigger fish if I wasn't catching the size fish I wanted. But I use this a lot, especially this time of year as the weeds are coming up, and a lot earlier than this. But at this time especially, You know, they're still coming up and still growing, so you can get them, you can get yourself into that shallow water, and the fish aren't going to be as afraid as this board going through the shallow water right here. So I'm going to go on to the next board, and they all are the same way. You got the clip right there. You put your line right in the clip right here. Always want to make sure when you put the line in these inline boards right here, make sure your line is all the way to the bottom, and then just let it come down. It'll hold on fire line, it'll hold on monofilament, it'll hold on lead core, any kind of line pretty much. And then you have a screw right on the top, a little Allen head screw. You can tighten it. If it's the line slipping out, you can tighten it down. I always like to run these with it clipped right on, so I reel the board in and then take it off when I get the fish close or get the board close. The first thing I grab is, as it's coming in, the first thing coming towards me is the front of the board right here. I grab the clip right there, undo the line. The next thing I do is pull the pin right back here. So in one simple little move, I can, you know, a couple seconds at the most from touching it to pulling the pin. The fish is free for the fisherman to fight from there. So let's see, which one do I want to go here to next? Let's go to the TX12 here. This is a TX12. It's got the little flag on it that tells you when you're hitting weeds a lot of times. Sometimes I run them without flags. This one right here, I brought it in to show everybody that the flags on it. And I have them set so that when a fish hits it or I'm hitting the tops of weeds, it's moving. Like when I'm hitting weeds, it'll pop up and down. Or if a fish is hitting it, I can, you know, there's a lot of little fish present and they're trying to, and I'm using crawler harnesses. They're constantly picking at it, so I know that after a while, after it gets hit a few times and then I don't see anything happening to it again, if I know that I'm not touching weeds, I reel it in. Or a lot of times the flag will go part way down. Well, now I know I got weeds on or got a small fish on. So then I got to check it again too. So you can adjust the tension here on the back by taking that spring right here, and I can move it further back here to increase the tension, and I can move it forward right here and decrease the tension. So depending on what I'm pulling from, maybe a deep diver crankbait or more weight on here, I would move the tension back down the board here to, so that it's harder to pull this flag down and make it not as touchy. I guess that's what you would call it right there. That's really important right there to have the flag adjusted right. And the thing is here, I'm going to kind of show you so that you want to know when this flag is working. You know, so a lot of people, they'll put this thing on, they'll clip it on right here. Okay. They clip it on and they take the clip back here and they clip it on back onto the back release here. I'm going to give myself a little more line, but I want to show you what I'm doing here so that you don't make a mistake like a lot of people can make here. And when they're fishing this thing, oops, here, I'll give myself a little more line here. Okay, here, try to get this thing in here. Not having the right amount of line here makes it a little harder for me, and usually I got it on a pole, which makes it a little easier. So if you don't give yourself enough line here, a fish can be hitting this, and the flag is doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So what you want to do is you want to have plenty of slack between the release back here, the back release that operates the flag, and the front release. So I'm going to give myself a lot of slack right there. Now anything that hits that board or hits the bait back here, it pulls it. You can see it pulls it down. So always remember, whatever planer board you're using, to leave enough slack between the back release that operates the flag and the front. If you got too much tension between the two, that flag isn't going to go up and down. So just remember that when you do hook these flags up, no matter who flag system you're using, remember you want to keep there's slack in between this release back here and the front release. And another thing that I want to, well, I'll get to that in a second, but I had this inline sinker in my hand, and I want to talk a little bit about it so nobody let me forget that. I want to talk about the inline release and the clip-on release a little bit later on in here. So then you have, the first board that really came out was the walleye board right here with the weight that you can adjust on it. And what thing that I like about this board, before I go on, I almost forgot something here. This board will pull, the little TX6 will pull all of 1 ounce of weight. It will pull 1 ounce of weight out to the side just as well as this one can pull 4 ounces of weight plus out to the side. So this, and then the TX12 right here, it can pull 2 to 3 ounces of weight, no problem, off to the side of the boat. So you don't have any problem using that. A big deep diving number 12, even without the flag on there, you can tell when a fish hits that thing, and it'll pull it right out the side. But now you have the little bit bigger board. This is the walleye board. And what I've done with the walleye board here, and I have the lead weight down here on the bottom too. The lead weight, you can move it forward or you can move it backwards on this thing right here. You got the lead weight right here. I want to keep remembering that. I got to keep it up in front of the camera here so you can see it. So this right here, when I'm using a lot of weight on this board, I pull this lead, I loosen the bottom 2 screws right there in the bottom, and I slide this sliding lead towards, if I'm getting a lot of weight that I'm pulling and it's pulling back and the board's coming up like this in the water, I pull that lead forward and then screw it down and tighten it up right there. So then that lead weight tends to level that board out, no matter if I'm pulling, a large bottom bouncer on it, or a 3-way swivel, or lead core, or maybe even running a great big deep diving number 14 Husky jerk, or like a reef runner, something that's going to pull hard and tip these boards out. Raise that lead up to the front to keep it level right there. And you can put little flags on these too for indicators. But what I really like is Bill Church came up with the little easy stores, and I'm going to show you what that is. The easy stores allows me to take this arm off, and I can store the boards a lot easier, and you're not breaking off the arms right here. And then I can just simply put this back in here, and just like that. This is one of the mini lock jaws that I have on here. I took the other original clamp that came on there, and you can adjust this clamp too right here on the top. You got a little Allen head screw that you can tighten up for the lines, different lines you're going to be putting in here. And the little jaw breaker, the mini jaw breaker, when you clip it down, there you go right here. I got to get it up to where everybody can see it. You just flip it tight like that, and now it's down. And then when you get a fish on, you just have to pop it like that, it pops open. Remember, when you store these, when you're done fishing, don't store them with them closed, because that just ruins the tension on it. It gets the pads sticking together. So make sure you flip the lever back right there, keep the jaws open when you're not using them, so you can keep the tension right, keep the pads from touching each other. And this is really a nice way here that you can change things out. So I'm looking right here for oh, here it is right here. I moved it over the side. Here's the original clamp that came on there. So if I wanted to go from the mini jawbreaker, I just slide the mini jawbreaker right off, and I can slide the other clip right back on. So it allows you to change clips, to change arms for whatever you want to do, and that is the Easy Store system. And there's what the Easy Store looks like right there in the package right there. They're easy to install yourself, just a few screws and lock nuts, and you got it on. So when I'm done using it, I want to store it easy. I don't want to be breaking arms. I just take that off and put them back in my into my glove compartment, and they're not going to get broken. They're not going to get stepped on like you keeping them around on the floor or something like that. Now it makes it a lot easier to store them and getting them back out on everything. Let's see here. I'm going to grab this is the Big Daddy right here. This is the TX44. This is for, you can use it for walleyes too, but this is mainly made for salmon fishermen, using lead core, using copper wire. This board will hold a pound. I put 1.5 pounds on this board before, and I use it with size 1 dipsy divers, with the ring on it. The biggest dipsy diver you can put on here will pull it out to the side like you're just pulling a little Rapala, right out to the side on these smaller boards. You can tell when you're using dipsies or you're using copper, lead core, 1.5 pounds of weight. If a fish hits it, you can see this board, it goes and acts just like the smaller boards. So it's really important that, we change boards for different different times you're out, you're fishing different fish, change the boards up to the fish that you're using. And so I'm just making sure I got, here's what I'm looking for. This is the big lockjaw right here that goes on this big board right here, this TX44. This is the big lockjaw that I could change. And one thing I want to say about this big right here, this big board, because it's so big and you got a lot of weight that you're pulling, this clip right here is backwards compared to this one right here, where the clip is frontwards on here. This one is backwards right here. So I'm trying to hold this up here. You can see one is facing forward and the other one's facing backwards, so that when you're putting a lot of weight on these boards, it's pulling the line back into the clip so that it can't slip or it can't come out. Very good idea, especially on this board right here where you're pulling excessive amounts of weight and pressure on it. You want to use that right there. And here again, I have that, so I can take this arm right on and off. And I could, if I had that big lockjaw, put on another arm right now, which I have around here somewhere. I'm looking, but I wanted to make sure everybody see they make 2 different size lockjaw clips, the mini one for the smaller boards and the big lockjaw for the bigger boards right there. And then as we go into the boards, we have, I'm going to use my boat here, my little boat I got from London a couple decades ago, it seems like. This is it's my Lund boat, but this is a little cast iron one that they gave me. I'm just going to use it as demonstration purpose. You know, when I'm using what I call my stern planers right here, and there's two different sizes. This is the double 07 one, and this is the TX 005 and TX 007. You can see these rods in the back. You'd have rod holders on the back. I just got them stuck down in here. The stern planers would go out behind the boat. What stern planers do is the fish, when you're fishing planer boards, of course there are fish out here on this side of the boat already, and there's fish on this side of the boat. But there's a lot of fish that you go over, they spread out and go around the boat, and then as the boat goes by, they come back into the prop wash behind the boat. So then they start feeding. And what happens, the prop here, and it's disturbing the surface, the prop wash kicks up bugs and minnows. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, I'm sure you have with Polaroid glasses, you've looked over the side of the boat and you've seen a lot of plankton in the water, but you've also maybe seen little pods of bait fish and minnows go by the boat. Well, these things are out there while you're trolling all the time. That's what the fish down here are coming up to the surface. That's why you're using planer boards. They're coming up and feeding on this stuff and going back down, coming up and going back down. So that's why you are using inline boards to take and extract these fish from the surface baits that are out here on either side of the boat or get disturbed by the prop wash. Well, when they go into the prop wash, this is the only way you can take them, because what happens, these fish come back around the boat if they don't get caught on your side planers. And the other thing is, on your side planers as they go around the boat, sometimes, oh, you have one on the side planer right here. Oh, and then it's gone, but you got to the side planer and you let it slide back in the water. You let it free spool a little bit, click it over, boom. Sometimes you can pick that fish right back up, even though it dropped your crawler harness, or say you were using a crankbait. Sometimes they'll come rushing right back and grab it. Sometimes they let it go. The other thing is, now you got the stern planer back behind the boat. You know, oh, it was on this side of the boat over here on your side planer. You had that fish on and it let go. You know it was hot. You know it's still there. So now you put your rod back in the rod holder for the side planer. You grab your stern planer rod right here, and you get up and you stand on the back of it and you hold your rod out as far as you can and steer that side planer out over the same water that you just, if it was close to the boat especially, you can steer it right over with the stern planer and get that stern planer to go over where you just missed that other fish. That's why I like using big rods, like 11, 12, 14 footers for the stern planers, because you can reach out. And if I miss a fish on this side, or I miss a fish on this side because it dropped it, the presentation, you've got an opportunity to pick it up. Well, you know, some days you're going to catch more on the side planers than you're on the stern planer. There's some days the stern planer is going to catch way more than 3 inline boards on this side and 3 inline boards on this side. 2 stern planers on the back are sometimes going to catch more than 6 other boards, because that's where they prefer to feed, is in the prop wash behind the boat. And so what I do with the stern planers, I put them on the rods. I don't have them at any other depth, and I'm running the planer boards off on each side. We'll say 40 feet. That's where I've been catching the fish, and that's where you catch your fish. That's a hypothetical for tonight. And so now you don't do anything different. You put 40 feet out behind I'm going to put this down. So you put 40 feet out behind the board. Right here is where you clip. I'm going to hold this up to the camera. There's a little tab right in the jaws right here. You put under that little tab right there. And maybe you can see it better with my finger there. Right underneath there, you put the line through there, and then that goes to your rod tip right there, and then you put your line, your back of your line that goes to your crawler harness or your lure through that little snap right there. And what's nice about that, you can actually, because this isn't solid hookup, say like this planer board, once you put the line in here, it's solidly attached to the board, so you can't see the spinner blade spinning, you can't see the vibration. That's why I use long rods too. I can see the vibration in my rod tip like this, whether it's a crankbait or a spinner blade on this, because this is free to move right here. This can move around a little bit. It's like a bullet goes through the water. It's hydrodynamic. And like I say, you can, with a long rod, you can reach out and put it over towards where you missed that fish. So now you can tell if there's a fish on it, you watch the end of your rod tip. You don't watch the little TX5 or the TX7 here. You know, it's not going to do the same thing as a board. It's just a presentation to keep your presentation at the right depth as, say, your side planers are, only way behind the boat. And I'm going to let everybody kind of understand here that what to expect on this. Your rod tip will bend over like you don't even have this on there. It's going to, when you get a fish, it's going to crank that rod over, and you just start reeling it in. You don't even feel the weight of this. And then you do the same thing, take it right off, and then take the back off right there. But the thing is this presentation right here, I put one out 200 feet from the rod tip to this behind the boat, plus I got 40 feet here. I put the other one out 250 feet, which is 50 feet further than this TX5. I put a TX005 out another 50 feet, the second one, so that now it's 50 feet out further, plus you got 40 feet. Even if they come together on turns behind the boat, they can never tangle up again. And that's what I want to, get to here is when you are running boards, and it's happened to me, so people are saying, oh, I don't never get tangled up. A lot of people go, God, I wonder why I got tangled up so bad. I got these two boards running on the same side of the boat. They're 20 feet apart, 30 feet apart, and I was making S turns and running through the fish, and why am I not catching fish over there on those boards? I reel in, they're all tangled together behind the boards. Well, it's happened to me. The thing is you got right here, molded into the lip right here is a piece of wire. Before you ever start putting a crankbait out behind a board or fishing it at all, period, you want to make sure that it is tuned properly. I'm anal on all this kind of stuff. So when I'm, tuning baits, I don't care whose they are. I tune them after every fish. I tune them every time I take them out of the tackle box and make sure they're tuned right. And I pull them 3 times faster than I'm going to fish them because I'm making turns with boards. What happens, they'll blow out. They might look like they're running fantastic at just the speed of the boat next to it. But if it starts running faster, they'll blow out. If they blow out away from me, I take that little wire and I bend it towards me. If I feel I've bent it, then I know I've bent it too far, usually. So I think I bent it, and I put it down, and it'll probably run right. Sometimes it takes me 5-10 minutes to get one to run right. Either I bend that wire towards me or away from me. If the thing's running towards me, I bend it away from me. If it's running away from me, I bend it back towards me until I get this thing so I can just see the thing running as straight as possible. It's not tuned. And the same goes for any bait. Right here, this is a bait where you have the, like original Rattles. This is a husky jerk right here. The other one was a tail dancer. You just do the same thing. You bend, when the eye comes off the front of it, you bend it towards you. If it's running out away from you, it's running towards you. bend the eye away from you. But if you bend it, usually you bend it too far. So be really gentle when you're doing something like that. It makes a big difference right there. You know, I wanted to, oh, then these are the 007s. One has rattles in it. One doesn't have rattles in it. When one of my pro staff, Steve Becker, he's over in Wisconsin. He's on Green Bay. He's an engineer, and he really fiddled with these things, trying to find out what made. He catches a lot of fish on day and night, and I catch them same thing. But he redefined it. When the waves are 2 feet and less, he puts BBs in here, and he's got 20 tee shot. Oops, get my there. Sorry. He even I labeled that after he put 20 little shot in here, and he found that that was the right amount of rattle right here. And 2 feet of 2 foot chop or less, it's best to use. We found out ones with shot in. Once it gets over 2 feet, you know, into the 3 foot category, we put them out without any rattles. And for some reason, without rattles, when you think that they'd really start making a lot of noise, they wanted it quiet. When it was hardly any wave action, they wanted it noisy. So just giving you some real tidbits when you're using planer boards out here to the side. Make a lot of S turns, slow it down, speed it up. Let people play in your boat. I like using them with kids in the boat. I tell the kids, hey, pull on it. They like pulling on it because it feels like a fish on, because that triggers the fish to hit it. It's almost like turning the boat one way or the other, making us turn. You pull on it. I let my co-anglers, amateurs when I had them to, just play with. If they get bored, here, hold the rod and pull on it. Makes a big difference. When like I say, I can put lead core on it. Here's lead core here. I can put, 10-pound XT. I prefer 10-pound or 12-pound XL on it because same diameter, more stretch. So the lures with that much line out, the crankbaits will go into the mouth of the fish like a real, like a real live one, or a crawler harness. There's a little, once you get so much out, it stretches a little bit. Even if it's that much, you get that much more into the fish's mouth with XL. And it's a forgiving line. And, if it drags crank down a little bit, the line will stretch a little more and allow you to land a couple more fish. I'm just looking for anything else here. Oh, before I go, I wanted to talk about this right here. I got a couple more minutes. Inline weights. I know a lot of you use inline weights here. You put crawler harnesses behind here, 8-10 foot leader. You can put a leader back here and put crankbaits on it too. And you can get it down depending on, how many feet you let out and how fast you're going. It's going to get it down. Well, this is all fine and dandy when you're using planer boards. I like using inline weights, especially when it's under 3 foot waves. I use inline weights. When it gets, I'm going to tell you, when it gets, not saying you can't catch fish when it get on inline weights when it gets over 3 feet, but you're going to catch more if you do this. Take that weight off right there, and just take it right off. It's cross like snap. I just take it right off, and I'd leave my crankbaits, just hook it right on there, or just hook my crawler harness, take it off the back of this right here, and hook it. Now it's just on there, and I put the 1 ounce clip-on weight on 20, 30, 40, 50 feet up the line. And what happens is if you have the inline weight right here and it's surging all the time, you don't have much leader to your bait, and you got maybe 30, 40 feet out or less depending on where the fish are. Well, that board is jerking on this, and it's jerking on the bait behind here. So now you got 20, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, whatever you want to put it, and then clip this clip-on weight on right here. And it hangs down from the board. When the board's surging, it doesn't pull back here on your crankbait or your crawler harness as easy. So just a little tip like that. I hope that helps you catch some more fish. I got so much more, but I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask me questions. Questions are very important here so that everybody can walk away from this tonight. And questions will help everybody else, whether they watch this webinar days later or hours later or a year later. Everything that you guys ask is going to be an improvement on what I've just told you, because there's so much more I can't tell in such a short time, but you can ask.
Okay, Mark, we are opening it up to questions now. We really appreciate your time tonight. I don't have any questions yet. I think some guys are typing as we're speaking here. That is a giant cup of coffee you've got there, Mark.
Tea.
Okay, that is a giant cup of tea.
Gotta have it.
Yes. Okay. While we're waiting for some more questions to come in, I will ask. I'll start kind of some process. How much? You talked about a little bit, but how much of this, with your planer board discussions and sizes and all that kind of comes into play with the amount of speed that you're going to try to troll with? Does it not factor in at all, or is it something that's important to factor in the size of the board with the speed that you're trying to troll at?
You're exactly right, Ross. So like if I was to use this little TX6 right here and troll real fast, it'll work all right going fast, but I got to get it way away from the boat if I have my rods and my holders up too high. And further I get away from the boat, the calmer it is, the better. But if it's rough, you start jerking on this, and so if you're going too fast, it'll start popping out of the water. So then I will immediately go to the TX12 board, and if it gets 3-4 feet and it's popping out of the water, and then I switch over and go to the TX22, and that'll usually bring it down in it. If it gets really, really bad, then I go to I'm looking here for my walleye board here. There it is. The walleye board right here, because it's got a lot of extra weight, and I can move the weight around on it to take care of speed and wave height. But a lot of it has to do with wave heights and the speed, like you were saying. So the beauty of it is I'm blessed to have a sponsor that has multitudes of boards that will work for every condition and every speed. Okay.
First question we've got tonight is actually from, I think, a friend of yours, Sam Wilson.
Hey, Sam.
Is tuning in tonight. And Sam wants to know what you're doing with detecting night bites.
Well, detecting night bites, you take these boards right here, and I should have grabbed them out of the garage. I got tape that I put on them, really high intensity tape that you can, you can put little lights in the top of them too, and they make lights for them too that go on the flags. But I put tape on them that lasts a long time, and I got it from my friend Steve over there in Green Bay, and charge them up, and you can see them way out away from the boat. The same goes for these two. At least I can see them out way behind the boat once they're charged up and everything. And the nice thing about it is other people can see them if there's people around too. So detect the bites on them. And if it gets to the real light bites and everything, I'll grab this TX 2022. So right here, there's little lights that go on here, so you can actually see the flag working at night. There's a little light that you can buy from Church Tackle that will attach to the flag. So if you want to look at the flags, there are little products that are made by Church that go on here. but I like the tape because I can see it and I can actually see it drop back behind the boat as I'm fishing too. Really.
Okay. Okay, great. Mario is wondering, will the S system work for trout and salmon?
Oh yeah, they exactly. In fact, these boards right here are one of the trout and salmon guys' favorite boards. This walleye board here. I'm trying to. There we go. Getting the arm back on so it looks normal. This is one of the favorites for lead core wire and a lot of that out there in the Great Lakes. And again, I fall back on the TX44 to really pull a big time copper wire, big time amount of lead, and big time dipsies back here. And it doesn't look any different than this with a small crankbait on. So it'll work. And also what's nice about the TX005s and 7s is you've got these so far behind the boat and out of the presentation of the downriggers, out of the presentation of the side planers, so that, you know, and they come right up the middle of the boat, but they're so far out you can fight fish a lot of times unless they run way out, and then you might have to do a little rearranging of the rods off to the side of the boat. But because you have maybe two stern planers back behind the boat, you can move these off to the side, and they're 50 feet apart in length, and they can rub right up against each other. So you can put these stern planers out even if a trout or salmon run way out. But when trout and salmon grab this is the size I would use, the TX007, or this one is what I do use, because they will hold great weights on them, where the TX005, you can see in comparison, it wouldn't hold much weight. But when you're dealing with trout and salmon, you're dealing with lead core, you're dealing with a lot of heavier weights. So this would be the ideal boards. The stern planer, the walleye board, and the TX44 are your choices right here for
Okay.
trout.
Perfect. Okay, Joe Fabian is asking, how do you position the line in the clamp? And he says to stay or release when there's a bite. Any changes if there's mono or braid in use? So he's basically asking, how do you position the line inside the clamp to make sure it stays, and then to easily be able to release it? And do you do it any different with mono versus a braid scenario?
No, I don't. I don't do anything different for the braid. I may, on this lock jaw right here, these seem to work better, these lock jaws on braid. But if I didn't, and I didn't have the lock jaw, and I just had this for right now, what you want to remember, so you don't want this board to release right here, is you put the braid in it and take this, or the fire line, whatever you have, and you got the little Allen head screw right there, tighten that baby down so now it pulls as hard as it can. But remember, put that line as far down in that clamp as you can possibly get it. Don't put it up towards the tip of these things right here, because they will pull out. That's one problem people have. They don't take the time to secure the line far enough down towards the screw and clamp it down, and then it'll come out. If you want it to come out, always make sure this is on the back, and you have, the line comes through where the pin is, and what will happen, it'll come off and it'll slide all the way down to the fish, which I don't like, because now you're fighting the board and the fish. But if that's what you like to do, is have the board release and slide down your line, better have a number 7 swivel that is, I'm just looking here, here it is. You better have a number 7 swivel, and that's about the size of a number 7 swivel right there, a ball bearing swivel that will stop the progression, and I'll show you right here. And I'll get it in here, and you can see right there, that's as far as it's going to go. So any leader you have from here on down to the fish, that's as far as it's going to go, but it's still going to be, it's happened before to me and I've had it slide down. I'm still able to land the fish, but it makes it a lot more difficult right there.
Okay.
I like to always take it off.
As part of that, Mark, Joe was wondering, what pound test do you think is best for the side planers? What's your general go-to? My
general go-to all the time is, especially on the larger ones, as I go to 12-pound XL, because I like the stretch in my XL compared to this XT. All the crankbait dive curve apps and books, they're all generated towards the 10XT, but 12XL is the same diameter as 10XT, but it gives you, once you have 40, 50, 120 feet out and there's a big fish on it, it allows that big fish to come up behind and suck that bait in a lot further into its mouth. But it also, when you have the line real short and you're playing it short and it's net time, things can pull, the fish can turn and jerk real hard. And with XT, there's not as much stretch as with 12-pound XL. You can at least land that fish with us, even having a slight mistake happen right there. If I'm going to use the little boards right here on spinning tackle, I'll go down to 8-pound and 6-pound Vanish, because Vanish is a tougher line. It's got a coating on it, and I like it because it's a little bit heavier. It sinks, but the nice thing about it is I can cast on spinning equipment. I can cast out, and I can put this little TX6 on here and cast that right out too, and get that to where I want it a lot quicker and into where I can't get bigger boards.
Okay. Got a couple questions. Bill was asking the question about speed in general. What trolling speed works best? What's your general thought process on speed and what works best?
Well, it's just a general guideline here, because you can, skew it from there. But early in the spring, from ice out to early in the spring, 0.08 to 1.1, 1.2, and then from this time of year, 1.2 all the way up to 1.8. From now you get into the summer, into the dog days, 1.8 to 2.2. And I've seen when it gets really hot up to towards 80-degree weather, I'm going 3 miles an hour plus, fishing for walleye. So, but stalling them out, taking it out of gear and then putting it back in gear again, making radical turns. And a lot of times in this last tournament, I went up and there was weeds coming up, and I would see the weeds on my side structure scan and on my Lowrance, and I'd see them coming, and I'd quick turn out away, and a lot of times that board would go, I might have been going at 1.8 or 1.4, all of a sudden that thing's going at 2-3 miles an hour, and we started catching fish on boards that were going faster. So now we picked up the speed and we started to catch more fish.
Okay. Now we've got a couple guys that are asking this question in general. What are you doing about when you have a bite? Are you just pulling on them, or are you allowing the act of trolling to set the hook for you with the board involved in it?
Well, I personally like to, if I see a fish going, and I see the board going back, I rush towards that rod and I pick that rod out of the rod holder as fast as I can get it. And I get in a position where I pick the rod up out of the rod holder, my whole body and arms are pulling that whole, to almost pull that board up out of the water to get a hook set on it. Where I see some other people, they reel on it and they do some other things. I have more success over my career, and I've hooked more fish by taking that rod out of the rod holder and setting it as quick as I can. If I miss that fish, whether it's on a crank or whether it's on a crawler harness, I immediately set it back down, open the free spool it back with my thumb on it, let it go 10, 15 feet, click the thing over, let it come back up out of the water, the board, and all of a sudden there's a fish coming right on it. So that fish I might have missed came back to get it. but I immediately try to contact that fish as fast as I can.
Okay.
And Ross, there's another thing too. There's times when there's fish that are barely biting on these boards too, where, you know, I've done it a few times that way, rushed right up and pulled on them, and then I realized, okay, I'm pulling it out because I'm using a crawler harness, and that happens on them quite a bit. Where now I'll let the free spool it back and just take my thumb and let it go back a little bit as I'm watching either the flag or the board, let it go back a little ways. Or a lot of times I leave the board, if I'm having problems hooking the fish by pulling it right out, I leave the board right in the rod holder and I nail it on with the gas, or I let them hang on until they finally grabbed it so hard that they're pulling the board right behind the boat. So there's a lot of different variances, but it's trial and error. I start out pulling it right away, and then I vary it from there.
Okay. I got another question here, and I know this is somewhat state dependent because I live in Minnesota and we're kind of boring. We use one rod at a time. But how many boards, what do you feel is manageable? This gentleman's asking the question, but at the end of the day, what do you think is manageable for our new viewers, and what do you think that, you know, what do you try to get, an experienced planer boarder to?
To start out with, what's really manageable for just about anybody, as long as they're fishing with a partner. If you're only fishing by yourself, I mean, then one rod off of each side, and you're just starting to learn. And that's, you know, with boards on each side, the stern planer out the back, now you're not going to have any problems. If you're a little bit more advanced and you got a partner with, I would say, 2 boards off of each side. And, if you're in Michigan, you can run 2 stern planers, you can run 3 presentations. And that would be the ultimate right there, because the stern planers are always going to be out of your way. If you get a fish on them, they come up the middle of the boat. If you get fish on the outside, the thing is I have my boat, and this is really, I didn't get to that, but I have rod holders going up and down both sides of my boat. So if I get a fish on here and I have it on the second board over, a lot of people reel in the inside board and they put it in the boat, and now you can't, I've never caught a fish in my boat yet. So what I do is I have rod holders on this side of the boat. So I had only 2 going out this side of the boat. Now I'm going to have 3, but the board is going to be pulling this way. So I bring it in right behind the transom of the boat, just out back here. It's still fishing, but out of the way of these 2 on this side. And on the last 2 tournaments ago, we caught one of our big fish right here behind the transom on a board that we pulled out of the way to catch a fish that was on the outside. And then for the advanced fishermen, 3 boards on each side, but you have to have enough rod holders on the opposite side of the boat. So if you got to put 2 rods over there to position them to out of the way, and now you got 2 planer boards a lot of times behind the transom fishing while you're reeling up the 3rd one to come in.
Okay.
Ideally, you always want the one on the inside when you got 3 of them out, but that's never ideal. Never have. That's a fallacy.
Okay. Well, Mark, I want to thank you very much. Folks at home, I appreciate your questions tonight. I appreciate you attending. Just so everybody understands, this is going to be available on Navionics website, probably within about 2 to 3 days. Mark also has a YouTube page from what he told me. It'll be available on there, so you can tell your friends you've got some great information tonight on planer boarding. You guys can sit around the campfire at your next fishing trip and talk about what Mark taught you guys, but you can also have your friends watch it on various devices. Navionics.com will have them. So will Mark Martin's Facebook page, just a couple of days away from now. So we appreciate you attending. Mark, I want to thank you very much for your time tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Good luck the rest of the fishing season.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Appreciate you guys.
Good night, everybody.